or have a myriad of causes. So what brings about that fear in you may be different than what brings about that fear in me. Similar to how we look at the phobias that we have in general, some people are afraid of heights, other people are not. Some people are afraid of blood, and in some families, the extent of that fear is, is up for dispute, but other people are not. Similarly, as Christians, the things that may cause us panic or anxiety, the fear that leads to that panic and anxiety may be different in one Christian and appears differently in another. And like in sheep, this panic and anxiety can be pre-threat, post-attack, and autophobic panic. So just like the sheep responds to panic in different circumstances or situations, we as Christians have those similar ways of panic occurring in us. So we're going to look at some of the symptoms, see how these symptoms are similar. We're going to look at the causes, see how these causes are similar, and then we're going to look at some exemplars from Scripture, seeing how these things manifest in individuals in the Bible, and see if there is actually any truth to these comparisons. So the symptoms that we looked at in the sheep, and symptoms here being the manifestation of that panic, were paralysis, flight, and I used death initially, but I'm changing it to incapacitation, which can include death. So paralysis, how that looks in us as individuals, in us as Christians, is that our ability to function is compromised or potentially disabled. So our ability to function, our ability to carry out our responsibilities, our ability to do the things that we would normally do will end up being compromised, meaning we're not functioning as good as we usually would, we're not functioning as effectively as we usually would, or it is potentially disabled. No function is being carried out. So I am not capable of doing the things that I normally would, or when I am doing them, I am doing them in a less effective manner. So that is how paralysis would look in the Christian when it comes down to panic plague. So it don't mean that we stop moving in a literal sense, but in a figurative sense, our movement through our functioning is being affected. And we're going to see how that looks, how that manifests when we look at the examples. Then we have flight. In sheep, this is the running away, and is a part of the fight or flight response that we have due to adrenaline. And how this manifests itself in us as Christians is that we flee or we avoid the source of the perceived threat. So whatever it is that we fear, whatever it is that we think is this potential or has the potential to cause us to panic, our response to that is going away and not going near it. I take away myself from it. That's how the flight manifests itself. So rather than trying to overcome it or to confront it, whether effectively or ineffectively, my presumption is the best case scenario is to avoid it or to run away from it. That's how flight is manifested in panic. And then incapacitation is that my spiritual growth comes to a halt. So I stop growing as a Christian. And here we're speaking, spiritually speaking. That's how incapacitation manifests itself. So these are not all the potential symptoms of panic and how it relates to us, but these are three that I think give us a good understanding of how panic works, especially similar to how it affects the sheep. Any questions, any queries? Everything clear? I'm not moving too fast. Now is the time to speak up. I'm going to presume silence is agreement.
Yes, morning, Stephen.
Morning. And
Yes, just to say that last time when you presented symptoms, you had paralysis, flight, and death. And I was going to question the thing about death because I was just wondering if that would be a symptom rather than maybe saying, for instance, screams, you like when you had kicking and screaming because of the fear of certain things that, are presented to you. But I see now that you have incapacitation, which I like better than the whole thought of death. I don't know if you had anything specific when you thought of death in the first instance.
I thank you, Sister Indala. My thoughts were similar to yours, which when I was reviewing, which is why I changed it. So
Oh, okay.
I realized that it didn't affect it. While death could occur, it wasn't an effective explanation of
Symptom.
the symptom. So
Yeah.
that's why I changed it.
All right. Thanks.
Good to know that our thoughts are similar because we know you're brilliant. All right, so I presume that everybody else is good. All right, wonderful. So causes, just like in the sheep, the cause is fear. For us as Christians, it's fear. And I'm using the same 3 types of panic to highlight how this fear manifests itself. So the first one, pre-threat panic. And this is fear of the unknown or fear of unknown, or a known fear rather, that threatens to cause harm, pain, or damage. So when you think that something could cause fear, you can know what that thing is, but you haven't experienced it as yet. So for example, you're walking, in a literal sense, you're walking down the road and you see a pit bull in the middle of the road. You have not been harmed, you have not been caused pain, you have not received damage. But the perception that this pit bull can cause those can lead to panic, and that is pre-threat. This may be the friendliest pit bull known to man. This may be a pit bull that has no interest in doing anything to you, but you don't know that. What you know of pit bulls is the potential to cause it. And that is how the known fear part works. If you know that this thing has the capacity to cause pain, harm, or damage, it can lead to pre-threat panic. And this pre-threat panic can be an empathized panic, where it is something you have experienced before, or a sympathized panic, where it is something that you have heard has been experienced by someone else. So you can sympathize with the effects of it, and that leads to the panic. So for example, those who have never been attacked by a dog have a different type of panic than someone who has been attacked by a dog. So the person who has been attacked already knows exactly what kind of harm, pain, or damage can come from a dog attack. And that can lead to panic when they see a similar dog to the one that attacked them previously. But that doesn't mean that I have to be attacked by a dog to panic. I could have watched enough movies where people are attacked by a particular type of dog. I may have seen my friend attacked by a dog, or heard stories of people being attacked by a dog. And now when I see that dog, that knowledge of what has affected others or been shown to happen when that particular variable arises leads to that panic. So that's how pre-threat panic works, when it is a known fear. And then there is fear of the unknown. So the perception that something bad can happen, even though I don't know if it will, can also lead to pre-threat panic. This is a big one for a lot of students when it comes on to test. You do a test. Based on what you have done in the test, you have no reason to believe that you have failed. But because you don't know the grade yet, you don't know the result as yet, and there is the possibility that you may fail, this can lead to you panicking. So you don't know the result. There is that unknown variable out there, and that can lead to panic. So that is the idea of fear of the unknown. Is also, you're going to, let's say you're going to do a checkup. So you're going to the doctor to do a checkup. You don't have any reason to believe that you have any underlying dangerous sickness. But just the idea that you may have one, just the idea that something may come about that is negative can lead you to panic. That is the fear of the unknown type of panic. In both cases, you have not been affected as yet. However, that potential to be affected manifests itself in this panic, in this fear. The next one is post-attack. Post-attack. And post-attack panic is fear caused by the direct effects of harm, pain, or damage. So when something has happened to you, and you are now experiencing the harm, the pain, or the damage from that particular experience, you can have post-attack panic. And that post-attack panic is essentially the fear caused by what it is that is going on at the moment. And that panic can make what you are experiencing far worse, both on a biological and a psychological level. All right, I presume that's accident and Sister Pitpat. So for example, let's say you did go to the doctor and you found out that you have a very bad illness. How post-attack panic manifests itself is the fear of what is now going to happen to you can affect the way you perceive what you are currently going through. And that can exacerbate or make worse the effect of that particular illness. So a lot of people, when they get bad news, illnesses, the mindset, the mentality, the response to that knowledge sometimes dictates how well they will actually recover from that particular illness. And I'm not saying that it is a determinant where once your attitude is good, then you will overcome. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying, however, is that there is scientific evidence to support that the psychological mentality that you have when dealing with that illness has direct implication on how well or how poorly your body responds to that. And that's how post-attack panic works. You find out that this has happened to you, and your response, your reaction, if it is one of fear, if it is one of panic makes that the effect or the damage worse. And then lastly, we have autophobia or autophobic panic. And this is fear caused by an overwhelming feeling of isolation and powerlessness. And this can manifest itself alongside pre-threat or post-attack panic. Or it can be on its own. So it can be a cause of panic on its own. But that fear that comes from either this feeling of literal or figurative isolation. So I may feel that I am away from my loved ones or my friends, or I'm by myself in a literal sense. Or I may feel that even in the presence of others, I am by myself. These aren't the relationships or the links between me and the people close to me are fickle, or they don't really have the kind of connectivity that I would want. There's that isolation. Or there's a figurative sense of isolation that comes from powerlessness, not having control over your circumstances, not having control over the things that happen to you on a daily basis, or the main struggles in your life can present that kind of feeling of separation, because you don't really have a handle on the things that you're dealing with. In both cases, that can lead to autophobic panic. And once again, how autophobic panic works is that it makes the circumstance, it provides an anxiety on top of what it is you are already struggling with. So that isolation and that powerlessness, that is a problem in and of itself, now becomes even harder to deal with, because here you have this fear and this panic in dealing with this particular circumstance. And these are very real fears that we go through as Christians. Some of them are directly related to our Christianity. Some of them are not, but it will affect our Christian walk. And these are things that we need to understand. These are things that we need to accept that they are real, and they don't make you less of a Christian to go through them. And also that these are things that with the right guidance, with the right understanding of scripture, and with the right support, we can overcome. All right. I hope that was clear. Any questions, any queries? All right, wonderful. We get into the part where I stop talking. So let us get, all right, so implications for us as Christians. Implications, just like with the sheep, there's a potential of being lost if we are overwhelmed by these particular fears. So in all cases, there is a potential to diminish growth, stability, or functioning as a Christian. And as I said, although we are focusing primarily on the effect of this on us as in a spiritual sense, these things also affect us secularly. So there are benefits to overcoming these things, both for us spiritually as well as us physically, emotionally, psychologically, etc. So if my fear, I can end up lost if my fear of the unknown or a preempted known fear diminishes my growth, stability, or functioning. So if my fear of what can happen or my fear of something that I think is going to happen leads to my growth, stability, or functioning as a Christian diminishing, then that can lead to me being lost. Similarly, if my fear of the effects of what I'm going through, whether it be pain, harm, or damage, diminishes that same growth, stability, or functioning, I can end up lost. And also, if my fear of loneliness or powerlessness diminishes my growth, stability, or functioning, then I can end up lost. All of these things can lead to us ending up lost. And please note, as I said, if this occurs, it can lead to you becoming lost. That doesn't mean that it will definitively lead to you becoming lost. You can overcome these things. You can learn to deal with them when they occur. Because a lot of these things are inevitable for us as Christians. As Brother Rowan highlighted in the message this morning, you can live a perfect, well, we can't live a perfect Christian life, but even if we could, that does not mean that we will not go through hardship. We won't go through struggles. And a lot of these hardships and struggles, especially for us as Christians, are the source of our fear. The fear that, boy, despite me living this particular way, these things can still happen to me. And a lot of the times, those fears are so insidious that we don't even realize that it is that fear that is propelling us in a particular direction. And we have to be careful that we don't allow that fear to compromise our faith in God and our faith that whatever happens to us, He will get us through. So we have some cases that we're going to be looking at. Go ahead, Brother Smith.
Oh, sorry. It's like a distraction.
No problem.
But my head has been, running in my head. And I'm just wondering if a case practically would be someone who has been coming into the church, for worship, whatever it is, and refused to get baptized or to commit because of the fear. They see people falling away, backsliding, so they don't commit. So their growth is, they don't have any growth because they're not going to commit because they see others fall and they don't want, they feel that might happen to them.
That sounds very similar to a lot of people's fear of marriage, where
Right,
they
exactly.
see marriage is not working out too wonderfully.
Mm.
And because of that, they're like, no, I am afraid that this might happen to me as well. Better I don't walk down that road in the first place than to walk down and end up in a situation like excellent point, brother Smith. Excellent
Does
point.
it would it qualify as part of what you're talking here?
Yeah, definitely. I think that would be both. So under a pre-existing pre-threat panic, that would be both fear of the unknown as well as a known fear. Because the fear of the unknown is that you don't know if this is going to happen to you, and you don't have any proof to say that this is going to happen to you. However, you also have the knowledge of those who it has happened to and how it has affected them negatively. And those things a lot of the time are the foundation for a lot of decisions and positions that we have. What can I predict? So how much do I know personally, and what do I know from others? And as Christians, we have to be very careful that we don't allow that to be the foundation of our faith, because the Bible tells us very clearly that faith is the evidence of things that we can't see. The minute we start to use the things that we can see, and the word see there, as used in the Greek, means to know because you have seen. So it speaks to experience. We have to be very careful that we don't start to use our personal experience or the things that we have garnered to be what determines how we move forward. Brother Smith, you want to comment?
Yeah, just let me just continue, continue the confusion for a quick second. The other one would be where your faith is linked to a leader or someone, and that person slips up. So in other words, I come into the church, or my faith is based on the fact that I see Brother Grennell as, a stand-up person, and I'm committed because of what it is. And then bam, something happens, God forbid. And my fear of continuing the work is I don't know if we could call it a fear, but yeah, it could be that I'm scared that this is going to befall me, and so I shrink into myself, because if this can happen to this person, what about me?
Excellent. Sorry, continue. Finish. What are you saying, man?
No, I don't. I'm sorry. No, I'm out now.
Excellent point, Brother Smith. Excellent point. And that falls both into pre-threat panic as well as it falls into autophobia. That fear of powerlessness that sometimes occurs when the people who we feel it would never befalls, can very easily translate into, well, if them can't do it, I clearly can't do it. If this brother can slip up, if this sister can slip up, then I cannot walk without slipping. And that that feeling of powerlessness can easily be the source of panic. When is it going to be my time? When am I going to fall? Because this person who is far greater than I am has far more control, and the perception of them being a far more stable Christian, they fell apart. If it can happen to them, it will happen to me. So excellent points that you bring up, Brother Smith. I presume that we will go through those, especially when we start to look at the prescription, when we highlight what we can do to counteract these particular situations. So thank you for bringing them up. Excellent presumption. So our list of cases that we're looking at includes, but is not limited to, 2 situations with Saul, hence why we have Saul. This is not Saul turning into Paul, but rather King Saul. So we have 2 situations with King Saul we're going to look at. We're going to look at Peter, we're going to look at Elijah, we're going to look at the Israelites, and we're going to look at Judas. The Judas situation is one that we've looked at in the past, but we're going to highlight a different angle on that particular situation. We're going to need a whole set of readers for these particular passages. So I hope you gear up, your voices are ready, for us to go. So let us start with Saul. As I said, we're going to look at one of the cases of autophobia before we do, one of the phobias. If you know what it is or if you think you know, raise your hand so that you can guess, so that points can be given to your team. All right, let's start with this one. So we have that long word of phobia. Anybody can guess what it is? Don't bother go to Google. Don't bother go to Google. There's no fun in that. Look at the word, man. If you look at the word, you can know what it is. That is not true. You can't know what it is by looking at the word. Let me give you a hint, since I'm not seeing any hands as yet. It is a fear of a particular. Oh, wait, let me see something in the chat. Let me see. Oh, Jordan says fear of long words. That would be a punishment if the fear of a long word is a long word, but that's not what it is. It is a fear of a particular type of insect, and it is known, this particular fear is predominant amongst Jamaicans. Fear of a particular type of insect that is predominant amongst Jamaicans. How many seen a hands yet, man? I swear to the hands them would have fly up. All right, go ahead, LaCount family.
I'm gonna guess it's the fear of mosquitoes.
That's not a bad one, but no, that's not what it is. Go ahead, Sister Endala.
Fear of moths.
That's not what it is. Go ahead, Brother Smith.
You mean another kind of insect.
All
I don't know. Ticks is not an insect. I don't know.
right, so Brother Smith don't know. Hold on, let's see. Whole heap of things in the chat. All right. Okay. All right. So first, Sister Marjorie, lizard is not an insect, so that one wouldn't count. But I can understand why you'd want to put that up there. The next I'm seeing is David, and it is cockroach, and that is exactly what it is. It's fear, not necessarily of just cockroaches, but fear of roaches. So that's what Catsaridophobia is, fear of cockroaches. Not going to for saving time, we're not going to go through the 0 to 5, but I'm just going to ask you to display with a raise of hand if you think that you have even a slight fear of roaches, whether it be cockroaches, flying cockroaches, etc. Just raise your hand for me, please. Let's see those who need assistance. Just 3. No, sir, this can't write. Just 3 hands. Okay, that's good. Big up yourself, all those.
No fear. Just look for the nearest spray can or shoes.
Yes, once there's no fear, then that's wonderful. I have no such fear of cockroaches either. But as we look at other ones, I know that it's not going to be that pretty for me. All right. So David, you got that one right. So gentlemen, I hope that you're ready to read. If we don't have enough people to read, we're going to need 6 readers for this. 6 readers. So come, gentlemen. Let's see. All right. So we have LaCount family and Tenant tribe. I know that we'll probably have a good amount of readers there. Sister Beverly, so I presume that's Tezane. I see the hand gone back down. I don't know if, okay, so yes, so Tezane reading there. We have Jamil. I hope that's the correct pronunciation. Because when you read, you can tell me if that's right or not. And I know LaCount family have extra readers. So LaCount family, hopefully have 2 gentlemen that can read. Tenant tribe, I hope you have 2. So LaCount family, you will be yellow and you'll be, David, you're saying something?
There's only 1 reader.
Oh, so just you, Sean. All right, so need 1 more from the gentleman, Brother Engel or Brother Smith. You can step up there. I guess I'll just give 1 of you. So LaCount family, you will be reading yellow and white. Sean, you will be reading green. Tezane, you will be reading pink. Jamil, you will be reading blue. And Brother Smith, I think the other color is orange. So you will be reading orange or whatever the other color might be. All right, so Lacan family, you can start us off.
Now the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Soko in Judah. They pitched their camp at Ephes Dammim, between Soko and Ezekah. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah and drew up their battle lines to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley between them.
A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze, weighing 5,000 shekels. On his legs, he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung on his back.
His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel.
Why do you not come out and line up for battle? I am not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subjects and serve us.
Then the Philistine said,
This is the day I defy This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other.
On hearing the Philistines' word, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. Now David was the son of an Ephraite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons in Saul's time, and in Saul's time he was very old.
Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to the war. The firstborn was Eliab, the second Abinadab, and the third Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tend his father's sheep at Bethlehem. For 40 days the Philistine came forward every morning and evening and took his stand.
Early in the morning, David left the flock in the care of a shepherd, loaded up and set out, as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out to its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and the Philistines were drawing up their lines, facing each other. David left his things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and asked his brothers how they were.
As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. Whenever the Israelites saw the man, they all fled from him in great fear.
Now the Israelites have been saying,
Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give him his daughter in marriage and will exempt his family from taxes in Israel.
David asked the men standing near him,
What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and over the disgrace from Israel? Who is uncursed Philistine, that he should defy the armies of living God.
What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and Saul sent for him. David said to Saul,
Let no one lose heart account on this Philistine. Your servant will go fight him.
Saul replied,
You are not able to get out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a young man, and he has been a warrior from his youth.
All right, thank you. Well read, Tezin. Brother Smith, Jemiel. Can tell me if that's pronounced, is it Jemiel or Jemel?
It's Jamil.
Jamil. All right. Thanks for the correction. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Zion and Brother Jason. So we have this particular circumstance, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. David, the build up to David versus Goliath. And naturally we are focusing on King Saul. And put yourself in King Saul's shoes. You are the leader of the nation. You have been at war. If you look at the book of 1 Samuel, you'll see that there were quite a few conflicts with the Philistines leading up to this particular showdown. And the Israelites were on one hill, the Philistines were on another hill, and there was a valley in between them. And here comes this giant of a man, Goliath, in his armor and such. Oh, let me ask some questions to give some points. Can anybody tell me how much shekels did Goliath's armor weigh? How many shekels? All right, go ahead, Tenant Tribe.
5,000 shekels.
All right, that is correct. The point for Samuel. All right, next question. Need to start asking them questions after readings to see how many people were following. What was the name of Jesse's oldest son? Go ahead, Brother Smith.
Eliab.
Eliab is correct. All right, one more point for Samuel. All right, last question. How many days had Goliath gone down to the valley and defied the armies of Israel? Go ahead, Britannia.
40.
40 days is correct. So here we have Goliath telling the Israelites, rather than have a massive war with tacticians and all of these things, let us do things one-on-one. I am the champion for the Philistines. Send your champion. If he beats me, then we are your servants. We are your slaves. If I beat him, then you are our slaves. And when the Israelites saw him and heard this, it said that great fear came among the Israelites. Question: would you diagnose Saul with panic plague? Anybody can respond with a yes or a no.
Yes.
All right, so Brit says yes. And anybody says no? All right, so see yes. Tezin, I see where you say no. You want to tell us why you say no? All right, we'll look and see if we can find some answer to that. So, what symptom or symptoms did he show? What symptom or symptoms did he show? Would we say there was paralysis, which was diminished or affected functioning? Would we say that it's flight, which is running away or trying to avoid the situation? Or would we say incapacitation, where there's a lack of growth? Anybody?
Like,
All right, so Brother Smith says flight. He was
in the sense of staying away from it, which
from
is
the conflict.
Yeah, which is in essence flight.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I mean, if this man could go down there for 40 days, clearly that was 40 days where no conclusion or no decision was made on the part of Saul, who was leading the army. And we realized that David, it was literally through hearsay that David recognized what the situation was and volunteered himself, as they would say in Hunger Games, as tribute. What was the cause or potential causes of his symptoms? Would you say pre-threat panic? Would you say post-attack panic? Would you say autophobic panic? And based on which one you think it is, I'm going to ask you a follow-up question. Anybody?
It's a pre-threat.
All right, so Britain Brother Smith, it's a pre-threat. Do you think that it was unknown, or if it were a known threat? Known or unknown from Saul's position?
I say known.
Brother Smith?
Known.
Known as well. So Saul is a man of war. Saul has fought against people. So Saul understands the significance of your build towards the threat that you pose on a battlefield, especially in a one-on-one circumstance. So as a man of war, Saul would look at Goliath and recognize that, boy, this, in a one-on-one fight, this man poses a serious threat, which is why he responded the way that he responded to David, where David came forward and said, I will fight him. Saul says that you can't fight him because this is a man who has been at war all his life and you are but a boy. I don't know if Saul knew that he was a shepherd at the time, but you'd probably have mentioned that you don't know nothing about war. And that gives us the understanding of how Saul perceived this particular threat. He perceived the threat as one that needed to be dealt with in a similar manner. It's a war threat. Here is a very strong, powerful, learned man in war. What we need to counteract that particular threat is a similarly powerful, similarly learned man of war. And at the time, as far as Paul was Saul, why I keep saying Paul? As far as Saul was concerned, that was lacking. He did not see a way to overcome the pre-existing threat. And that was one of the reasons why the fear that overtook them was so great. The harm, the pain, and the damage that seemed to be caused by, or could be caused by this individual was extensive. And as a result of that, we see his response. I would also throw in the potential of autophobic panic, which is speaking to the powerlessness that Saul would feel in a circumstance like that, especially based on his position. How members of the army, how citizens of Israel would feel in a circumstance like that is slightly different than how King Saul would feel, knowing that he is the responsible person for everyone. He is the one who is supposed to lead Israel. He's the one who is supposed to get them out of circumstances like these. And now, I would presume that if somebody's supposed to take on the responsibility for Israel, it's supposed to be the king. Now you're in a position where you can't find anybody to go up against this man, and you don't have the power to go up against him either. Here you are at a rock and a hard place. And that feeling of powerlessness, that feeling of inability to have control, and then also that feeling of isolation where you are the only person who truly can bear this burden. You don't feel like other people understand what it is that you're struggling with at this moment. So you feel like you're isolated from everybody else. That's the potential to increase the type of panic that Saul was experiencing at a particular time. And I'm sure that if we were in a similar circumstance, I mean, warfare these days is not the same, but I'm sure that if there are individuals who are members of enforcement services, whether it's police, soldiers, etc., you would in some way or at some point felt a feeling of powerlessness because of a threat that you did not have the direct ability to counteract. So I'm sure even if we can't empathize with Saul, we can understand this fear that overwhelmed him at this particular time. All right, we only have 6 minutes. So and the next scenario with Saul is pretty long. So we're not going to walk down that road until Tuesday. So that when we start class on Tuesday, we will be looking at the next scenario with Saul, and hopefully we'll get through a few more of those cases, after which, having looked at those cases, we will see how similar those cases are with what we go through nowadays as Christians, as well as what can we do? What can we do when we feel like we are suffering from panic plague so as to overcome it? Thank you for those who read. Thank you for the participation. Thank you for listening. We will continue our class on Tuesday. Unless you have any last question or comment, you can feel free to make it now. Or if you need clarification on anything. Okie dokie. All right, so no further comments. I'll just quickly recap our announcements and then we will be dismissed. I know that we have no birthdays or anniversaries this week. Reminder that our Bible class continues at 6:30 on Tuesday and up until the 25th of January, when we will be starting another series. It's a temporary series. It will just be from the 25th of January till I think the last Tuesday in February, and it will only be on Tuesdays. So note to those who are not able to join us on Sundays, the Bible class on Tuesdays from the 25th of January to the last Tuesday in February will be on the subject of eldership. I think it's eldership in local congregations is the name of the study. Yes, elders in the local congregation. So just a heads up for those who are only a part of our Tuesday Bible class, that will be the subject for about a month. On Sundays, however, we will continue this particular study. So it will just be for that month, once a week. Our Navigating Life webinar series continues on Saturday, 6:30. The topic being purpose, goals, and fulfillment, a different approach to personal planning. Excellent subject given the time of the year that we're in, the goal making, resolution, enforcing period of time. And now is a good time to consider perhaps going about things in a different way. So we look forward to that on Saturday. As I said, the eldership series starts on the 25th, and our grief therapy support group that continues on the 29th of January, 6:30 p.m. It's every last Saturday of the month. Brother Andre is facilitating this group, and it's for those who have experienced the loss of a loved one, or those who are close to those who have experienced a loss. And it's a very helpful, very informative, very therapeutic meeting. And we encourage all those who are affected to be a part of it. All right. I hope that
People
we'll
just want to,
Yes,
just
brother?
want to encourage people to participate in the Bible in a year.
Yes. So please, Brother Smith has sent out numerous material in regards to the Bible in a year, how we can use it to study the Bible both consistently and also in different ways that may be better suited to how we study. So there are numerous different approaches in regards to the scriptures that you read at a particular time. Brother Smith also sends supporting information to help in both understanding and bringing to life the particular verses that you'd have read for that particular day. So I'm encouraging all of us to be a part of that. If you have done it before, reinforcing is wonderful. If you have never done it before, now is the best time to join in. It's not too late to start, even though the year has started already. It's best to catch up now than to change your mind in May and you have half a year to catch up with. All right, so thanks for that reminder, Brother Smith. And I hope that we'll enjoy the rest of the year's Sunday. A reminder to all members, especially local, if you have extra dinner, feel free always to extend the invitation. We are dismissed. Enjoy the rest of your day.